Okay, welcome to one of my most favourite units. We're going to start to talk about disease and the way that our body combats disease. But before we do that, hopefully you went out there and you found yourself an outfit for me. Yes, so hopefully you made yourself a headpiece. And the reason we did all of this and you came back and you looked silly was because we're going to talk about these things called antigens. Now, the dot point itself talks about, and you can see this dot point down on page 3. Hang on, there's a point, the first dot point on the very first page. Sorry, it was missing out of page 3. So an antigen as a unique molecule or part of a molecule that initiates an immune response, including the distinction between non-self antigens, self-antigens, and allergens. Now, I'm going to leave allergens until we come back to that when we talk about allergies. But for now, let's just talk about what an antigen is and what the difference between a self-antigen and a non-self antigen. So here are your lovely words that you need to fill in on page 3. So there's a little thing that says, what is an antigen? And there's a bunch of lines. So an antigen is a molecule or a part of a molecule that can be recognized by your immune system. So your immune system can come up and it can kind of sniff around, not really, but there's a receptor that will bind to it and it goes, okay, that's you, we're all good, go away. Most initiate an immune response, but some don't. Yeah. So anything that is a non-self antigen is definitely going to initiate an immune response. But when we talk about antigens, one of the best ways to talk about them is to talk about your blood group. So you may have had your blood group tested. You may know what your blood group is. I know that I am A positive. I'm going to ignore the positive part for now, and I'm just going to talk about the fact that I have A type blood. Now, when I say I have A type blood, that means on the outside of all of my red blood cells, there are little A antigens. Now, these A antigens, sorry, I've read one thing and written another. Now, these A antigens identify every single one of my red blood cells as being an A blood type. Now, that means that I don't want to create antibodies which are against them, anti these antigens, and we'll get back to this in great detail soon. But so I don't want to create these guys. I don't want to create antibodies that attack these because that would be bad because then my blood would be attacked by my immune system. However, my body doesn't recognize B-shaped antigens like you see down here. So the B-shaped antigen down here is a circle. The A-shaped antigen up the top is a square. So what will happen is my body makes anti-B antigens. That means if you were to give me B-type blood, so you put this blood in my body, then what happens is these antibodies come and bind to it and neutralize it. So that's bad. I can't accept B-type blood. If you have a look down here, if I had B-type blood and you gave me A-type blood, yeah, so you gave this to me, unfortunately these guys are going to come up and they're going to attack that blood. Not great. Now, if you have type AB blood, which is what my mum has, she has both A and B antigens on the outside of her cells. What that means is she can take blood from people that are type B. She can take blood from people that are type A. She can take blood from people that are type AB. Yeah? And she can also take blood from these people that are O. So what we call AB is these are called your universal acceptor. And then you get down to these guys, which are most of the Australian population. About, I think it's 40 or 50% of the Australian population are O-type blood. Now, O-type blood, O stands for 0. Yeah, they have no antigens. That means the only people they can get blood from is other people with O-type blood. If you were to try and give them AB-type blood, these antibodies would attack it. If you tried to give them B-type blood, yeah, this antibody would attack it. Can you see how if you tried to give them A-type blood, this antibody would attack it? So the only blood that you can accept if you are an O blood type is O blood. Yeah. not that great, but when you've got 50% of the population that have O-type blood, that's great. If you found out that you had O-type blood, it would be time for you guys to go start donating. And normally I do a big donation spiel. I'm not going to do it on video, but if you are over 18, then you can already register and you can already start donating blood. I'm not sure if they are accepting blood at the moment during the COVID crisis, but the moment that it starts up again, you guys are young, you are healthy. When you go to uni, they bring the trucks out. You must be donating blood. Even if you are AB, yeah? Even if you're AB, you need to donate blood. So long as you are healthy and you fit the criteria, you should be donating blood. There's my little spiel. So if these guys here are the universal acceptor, so they can accept all blood types, what this means with the O blood, though, is because it's got no antigens, we call this one the universal donor. And that means that the people with O-type blood can give to AB, yeah, because those antigens aren't going to cause any problem. They can give to B and they can give to A. Oh, so nice. Yeah, so O-type blood is really, really in need, in particular O-negative blood. And that's because the negative and the positives work very similar to this schedule here, or this scheme here. So if you are O-negative blood, that means you don't have any antigens. If you're O positive, it means you don't have any AB antigens, but you do have a positive antigen. Now, there are plenty of videos about this that you can look up on YouTube that do a better job of explaining it with lovely animations for you. The important thing is you don't need to remember blood groups. So you don't need to remember blood groups, but they're such a good example of antigens and the way that antigens work that I can't get by without teaching you about blood groups. All right, so the last thing in my little spiel on antigens is the difference between a self-antigen and a non-self antigen. So a self-antigen, which is a type of MHC marker, and we'll come back to them when we do the immune system itself. So these self markers, they identify our body or our cells as friendly cells, and these immune cells don't attack them. That's good, yeah? You don't want your immune cells to attack nice, healthy cells in your body. The moment that a foreign pathogen or a foreign antigen enters your body, so usually this, for example, is a bacterium. So on the outside of a bacterium, your immune system kind of sees this antigen and it goes, no, that's non-self. I don't like that. And it will come up and it will initiate an immune response. And that's what we're going to be getting into as soon as we've gone through some of the really interesting pathogens that we have in society at the moment and in the past. But that's the end of my little talk on antigens.